Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey always reigns supreme. Whether you were raised at the Bourne in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, let's drop the puck and get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Nights in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Sunday, March 3rd, 2024. Coming at you live at Florida Media in Rockville Center. Another amazing show coming up for you tonight. Justin Bourne of Sportsnet will be joining us to talk Isles, to talk NHL, to talk trade deadline. With me, as always, is Mr. Stefen Rosner. My name is Sean Cuthbert. Stefen, how do you do today?
I'm doing great. We talked about it last week. I needed a haircut bad. You had the great haircut. So I went in and asked for the Sean Cuthbert special. They didn't know who that was. No offense. Apologize.
That's unfortunate.
But we had a nice trim.
Okay,
so,
yeah, looking sharp.
Thank you. Appreciate
Not bad. Yeah, I had to throw the hat on today, so I'm sorry to disappoint.
Hey, it makes me look better. Right?
What do you think?
Maybe, I don't know.
Well, welcome to the program, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. Before we jump into everything, I want to tell you all about our wonderful sponsors, starting with Blue Line Deli and Bagel. Satisfy your hunger at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington and 217 Carlton Avenue in East Islip. Check out the menu at BlueLineDeli.com. Also happy to be sponsored by Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd and unplug your game at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. And happy to be sponsored by Razor and Kniff Attorneys at Law, ready to fight for you. Check out RazorandKniff.com, RAISERANDKENNIFF.com for a free consultation. And also happy to be sponsored by A1 VIP Entertainment, your one-stop entertainment concierge for sports, concerts, Broadway, and more. One call does it all at 516-787-0048. And for those of you hanging out with us in the chat, remember, if you want to get a question in for Questions Brewing, say Questions Brewing, then your question, and hopefully we'll get to it when we get to the segment. So with the pleasantries out of the way, Stefen Rosner, let's talk about the week that was. 3 straight wins for the New York Islanders. They reel us back in after last week. We were almost writing their eulogy after the poor performance in the week prior. They go 3-0 with some impressive wins, especially last night against Boston. We will get into that one, but just talk about the week overall, and then we'll break down these games.
The whole thing under Wah was progression, but we need to see execution. And this week, more or less, they played the way that Wah needs them to play. And again, you start with the big win. Like you said, all the wins are huge nowadays with where they are in the standings.
Absolutely.
But you go into Dallas. Very tough place to play, a very elite team, probably a Stanley Cup. People might pick them to win the Cup.
Sure.
You go in there, you battle back to go to overtime, and you win in overtime. Matthew Barzal, maybe one of his better shifts we've ever seen from him in overtime, what he did to set up Bo Horvat there. And then you look at the game against Detroit. Now, blowing 2 third-period leads.
On
never
brand.
Ideal.
On brand.
But, unlike under Lane, they win the game, and they don't win it by just one.
That's right, buddy.
65 games between regular season games between empty netters, if the math's correct.
I mean, would you have been surprised if they had finished the season without one? The way everything was going, right?
But again, we've talked about it too. Is like if they had scored empty netters in some of those games where they blew the lead late, the games are over.
Right.
Oh, that shouldn't say that. They would have a 2-goal lead with X amount of time.
It would be that much closer to being over.
And is it perfectly poetic finish that Engvall is the one that gets it?
Yeah, pretty funny. I was hoping for a clapper.
I think Brennan Burke said
somebody mentioned that to me on Twitter too, and I was like, yeah, if only.
Yeah, and then so you have 2 wins, 2 different wins, but the Dallas one was critical, obviously, given how good that team is. And Detroit was riding a 6-game winning streak going to that one. And
right.
Showtime.
I think it was 7.
It's 7? It might have been 7.
Either way.
It was a win streak.
Close, yeah.
It was a team that was playing well, and Patty Kane was playing well.
Yes.
He does get a goal. Obviously, there were some breakdowns.
Right.
You win that game, and then it's okay. 2 wins in a row. Islanders' biggest issue was building on leads. They had only won 2 games in a row for the 7th time. That was their 7th time this year doing that.
Yeah.
They've only done it, I think, 3 games in a row twice.
Mm-hmm.
And you're playing the Boston Bruins. You're thinking, all right, we took 2 steps forward, but this is the Boston Bruins team. We could play our best brand of hockey and still lose this one.
Mm-hmm.
But if they could beat Boston, what the schedule looks like, that would be huge. And the Islanders go, and Patrick Waugh that morning said, we got to get off to a good start against this team.
They sure as hell did.
And Kyle Palmieri said, hold my beera, because
hold my pasta, hold my beera.
What he did in that first period was ridiculous. You could take it away there with that.
Yeah, well, let's head back to Dallas real quick. I just want to key on, just that shift from Matt Barzal.
Yeah.
This is a guy who, is clearly, at least to me, the leader of this team. Obviously you can talk about Sorokin, you can talk about Anders Lee wearing the C. You got Horvat there, you got Dobson there on the defensive end, but Barzal is the face of this franchise, and this is a guy who's finally putting up the numbers that he's had since his rookie year, and everybody knows he's capable of because he's been a little bit the leash has been loosened, if you will, with under Lane Lambert and now under Patrick Waugh as well. But he's been an outstanding player, but just. I mean, that one shift really encapsulated what this guy is capable of, right? Just the tenacity, digging the puck out of the boards, chasing it around behind the net, coming out with it, and just having the poise and the patience to eventually make the play that he did to set up Horvat. And, funny enough, you get the back-to-back Horvat versus Dallas overtime winners, right? And but just an outstanding effort, and he's the type of guy with efforts like that can win you hockey games and win you big games if they get to the playoffs.
Yeah, and he had the huge pass there, and then the huge goal against Detroit to give him the lead, to the bank shot there.
Yeah.
But that shift in overtime, hearing him after the game saying, we needed to win the game. Like, I need to go in the corner, win that battle. And
every night.
You think about an overtime, especially for a team that kind of needs 2 points, that usually when you lose the puck, it's get back into your zone and set up your structure. Like, if Barzal had the puck get stripped, if Barzal peeled back and got back, no one would have batted an eye. That's right. I got it right, by the way. Batted an eye. That's an expression.
Nice
I got
job.
that right. Thank you.
Proud of you, man.
First one.
We're in March. You made it.
Yeah. Birthday coming up. So you look at that play, and he decides not to do that, which is risky. If he goes into the corner and they peel back and go up that board that way, then it's an odd man rush, and Islanders probably lose in overtime. But he wins the battle, makes a huge play, and again, like I said, scoring the big goal. All this guy's done this entire year has been a big player in big moments, and maybe at times the penalties we've talked about have hurt the Islanders, but right now is they have to win all these games, and Barzal has been a reason why. He hasn't just been a passenger where with the talent the Islanders have, like his line shouldn't have to do everything, but when your top players that you're paying to be top players come through and then other guys follow suit, that's how it has to be.
Yeah, and he was huge against Detroit. That bank goal ultimately ends up being the game winner, plus the empty netter from Engvall. But another big game where a guy like Barzal is stepping up, and another leader, Brock Nelson, gets 2 in that game. He's a guy who's really coming through for them now. And look, we still got to wait and see how the rest of the season goes. But it is absolutely crunch time now. We're talking about just how important every game is night in, night out. And you're seeing the leaders step up. You're even seeing Anders Lee, pot some points too. And it's a thing that has to continue. And you get the big win against Detroit. That kind of keeps them, in striking distance if they go on a little bit of a lull. Obviously, they had the hot streak. Maybe they come back down to earth a little bit. Maybe that's a team you can still chase. I believe as of tonight, they're also 6 points back of them and Tampa, but they have the 3 games in hand on Tampa. So Detroit's still kind of in the mix there too. I think they still play them 2 more times before the season's over.
They play them, I believe it's 1 more time.
It could be 1.
1 or 2. You're probably,
Either way, they see them at least 1 more time, but this game may end up, being huge for them if and when it comes to that game later on. But, then you go to last night, and that for me was the test. Because it was nice to beat Dallas. It was nice to beat Detroit. And it's like, okay, two wins in a row here. Now, can they really make a statement? And before the game, I threw a little tweet out saying, like, if they do something tonight, like then, they're reeling us back in. Because even after those first 2 wins, I was like, with the way they've been winning and losing, the way we've been talking about this team on the show, and I think last week, without even necessarily saying it definitively, I think the two of us were already kind of like, this could be it. We'll see. I know we both still have been saying, like, oh, we think they'll make the playoffs, but like last week, I was kind of on my way out of that. So we go into last night, and I was like, if they give Boston a run here and they get a win out of it, I was like, they probably got me back on board for at least the possibility, right? And the numbers are there. I think they're 5 points now behind Philadelphia for the 3rd place. They still have a game in hand on them. So there's a couple of teams that are in striking distance where if they continue to play like they have this past week, then you got a shot. And also, we're going to find out what happens the week ahead when we hit What's on Tap, whether or not Lou is going to be a buyer or a seller or maybe kind of hold his cards to his chest here. Yeah,
I mean, again, you look at just how big a win that was.
Right?
Sure, just Kyle Palmieri scoring a natural hat trick in 8:47 help you? Yeah, very much so. But it was just, I saw a lot of people saying, well, Boston didn't play well. Honestly, if you really want to look at the game objectively, the Islanders didn't allow Boston to even get to their game. Did Boston not play well? Correct. Boston never had a chance to get to their game, which means the Islanders played well. And you saw, again, right off the bat, they realized Olmark's rebound control wasn't incredible. Now, again, the defense was allowing way too much for the Islanders off the rush, things like that. But goals, off rebounds. I think 3 of the 4
that's
goals.
it. I mean, they were getting down low. They were causing havoc in front of the net, and they earned those goals. I mean, where's that been all season? I mean, maybe sometimes they get those shots and they don't end up going in, but Palmieri, he gets those 3 in a row. But yeah, I mean, they essentially dominated the game for the first 40 minutes. They only get 1 shot on goal in the third.
Yeah.
I think they were just kind of trying to protect themselves there. But, not only do they come out to a commanding lead against a top team in this league, but they only gave up 1 goal coming back, and they held on, and they beat a huge team here. So it's a big win, but they still have to show us more. They're still on the outside looking in, but a huge game for them. Definitely a confidence booster after all the blown games and stuff like that, right? So maybe this is a team now that they can get back on their horse and really, look like the team that you and I and probably most of you guys out there thought that, who was capable of more, right? We always thought the talent on this team was better than what they were showing on the ice.
I was probably their biggest proponent of that. And just everyone's like, there's no talent. They don't have, I'm like, again, that number with the fewest minutes trailing. And when you're on that list and none of the other 10 teams are playoff teams and you're trailing the 5th, you've allowed what? You've been trailing the 5th fewest minutes in the NHL. You clearly have talent because you had a lead in those games or you were at least tied.
Right.
And we were saying that. But again, this week, and we spoke after the game and Wah was great about it, but I just want to touch on a couple of things last show we talked about the line changes they had made that morning at practice. We didn't have a game yet to see how the lines went, but they make the line changes. Since then, they're 3-0. They've outscored their opponents 14-6, 5-on-5, 10-5. 14 players have recorded at least a point. 12 have recorded at least 2+ points. So we all thought, okay, this line's going to be top heavy. This lineup's going to be top heavy. They're going to have to find a way. And we've seen all the lines. Now, last night was the waiting for that Pajot line to finally come through. You had the top line coming through. Cizikas line looked great. McLean came through in that one game. The second line hadn't looked great. And you're thinking, all right, what are they going to do with this line? And then last night they explode. Obviously, Palmieri gets 2 out of his 3 at 5-on-5. Lee gets 1 at 5-on-5. Great line. After the game, Patrick Roy was asked, are they finally playing the way you want them to play? And this is what he had to say.
I think so. I like to think so. There's one thing I learned. We don't take anything for granted. But I like, the chemistry that all those lines have. The 4 lines are playing well. The defense are playing well. The goalie makes a good save at the right time. So, I just feel like right now, we have something good going on. The guys look a lot, they look sharp. They feel good. They look alive out there.
Yeah, so, everything Wad just said, they look like a team last night that can compete with any team in this league when all 4 lines are going. The question is, on every given night, is all 4 lines going to be going? Now, we've seen Wah doesn't have an issue if one line's not going. He'll just take you out of the rotation. But it is so hard to defend when you have 4 lines that could actually score.
Right.
There's offense. Yes, you could look at the 4th line, and Matt Martin did get hurt. He didn't play the final 15 minutes last night. We don't know exactly what the case is. Wah just said he was hurt. He doesn't have any more on that, but every line had speed. Speed was the biggest thing last night. That was probably the fastest they've played. To my knowledge, trying to remember, but I can't remember them ever being off the rush chances last night. It's like, what team are we watching?
Right.
You watch games on TV and you go, wow, this looks nothing like the way the Islanders play. Not even talent-wise. They could have the same record, but that team just looks so much faster on TV. And again, I didn't see it from TV. I was watching it live, but so fast. And again, it's not like the team there's no new players. It's just moving the puck fast. And Wad did mention this during his interview that it's easier to move the puck quickly than skate the puck out. Right. I think people realize you look at speed and they go, oh, but there's such a slow team. And then you look at physical speed, and sure, you need to have guys that can move, but look at Palmieri's first goal off the rush. That's Dobson feeding him across 2 zones to hit Palmieri right over the blue line. Palmieri wasn't fast there. Right. It was a fast play. And it set up everything. So you talk about breakouts. It's not even just moving fast. It's the quick thinking. Pellick, when the Islanders are transitioning well, it's because Pellick's making quick plays. He's not moving fast. Just making quick plays. So I think team speed's there. I think if the Islanders could add more, that'd be great. But you saw last night that this team with this roster is a fast team when they play the way they played last night.
Yeah, and now the question is, are they going to continue to play this way? Because obviously we have a much larger sampling of the struggles that they've had this season. So this is nice, but now we got to see if they can really, take this week and expand on it and turn it into a run, because we know that they have to go on a run in order to get into the playoffs, right? They can't be doing the win 2 games here, lose 2 games there, whatever the case. Like they have to go on a run. So it's encouraging. I'm not ready to christen them playoff bound at this point after a nice little week and a big win over Boston. It's definitely a step in the right direction, but we really have to see if this is a team that can build off of this. You know, we'll talk about it later with the schedule coming up, because there's definitely an opportunity to bag some points. You know, I looked at the rest of the schedule, and there certainly are some tough games sprinkled in there, no question, but there's a lot of winnable games from here on out. And I think Ava actually, in her piece about the trade deadline, she had mentioned that I think they were like 16th overall for their balance of schedule for the rest of the season back then, about a week ago. So, you know, it's there, but you know, we just have to see if they can continue to do this, because if one thing they've been consistent at this season is being inconsistent.
Just gonna say that was good.
And now we have to find out if they can finally, you know, keep this stuff together and put some wins out.
Yeah, but you talk to the guys in the room too. The belief is there. Pageau last night saying we're not done. Again, maybe he be on the team. We don't know if he'll be on the team or not to see it through. We really don't know.
Right.
But there's so much belief in this group. There's always been that much belief in this group, even when there were struggles. You know, this team believes, and I think Wah coming in told them, like, hey, you guys should believe in yourselves. The talent's here. We just got to get you playing the way you need to play. And again, the first week, really tough. 1-2-1, where they probably could have gone 1 of 3 or 4. And then you have the 2 wins out of the All-Star break, and then you lose the Calgary one and the Kraken one. You're thinking right back with Lane type of hockey, the way they were playing, and you go, okay, now what? They go on their 2-game road trip. They win those 2 games, and then Boston. And then this was, like you said, such a big measuring stick game. All that hard work that week to get 2 wins in a row, which they've struggled to do this year. To get that third was massive. I guess especially, too, you look at the standings, and sure, the Islanders didn't gain ground on the Flyers, but the Flyers won. So if the Islanders lose last night, now they're 7 points back.
Right.
So it's huge, even if they didn't gain ground. It's so huge because you don't know what's going to happen the rest of the way.
And another way to look at the standings, now that you brought it up, is however many points they're behind any of these teams that they're chasing, they're essentially behind an additional point because they're not winning any tiebreakers.
Correct.
With the
you tell me they're not winning the regulation?
They are not. No effing chance, I was about to say. So they essentially will have to gain at least 1+ point on whomever they're chasing, you know, without even needing to look at it. I'm sure that's the case. So they have their work cut out for them, but the possibility is there. But now we can talk about how does this run here this week affect Lou Lamoriello and his trade deadline. Now, obviously, we have to see what happens in this coming week. There's 3 more games before we get to Friday. So, you know, where do you think that stands? Is Lou maybe leaning buyer now a little bit more because they're still in the thick of it, because they can make up points on some of these teams essentially with just their games in hand? Or is this something he's still going to be a little conservative about?
Well, there's 2 ways to look at it. One, I talked to Barzal Friday, and I asked him, I said, how much pressure is it on you guys to win these games? That way Lou does buy. And he goes, well, of course, like if we go into the deadline winning games, we're going to kind of force Lou's hand. We know Lou will help us if we prove that we could do that. So he goes, it's on us. So you can look at it one way is now, why wouldn't Lou buy? Given that their schedule coming up, I think if he's going to buy, it'll be before the deadline. It makes more sense to get the help now. And you can say, yeah, go get depth pieces. Go get another defenseman. There's injuries. Mayfield, Martin, Fashing still out. Bortuzzo still out. Can you maybe upgrade positions? Things like that with cap space. Or you could look at it as, look at the way the lineup's playing right now. Does Lou stand pat? Is this team, again, if you don't believe the Islanders are a cup contender, and Lou says he believes in this team, but Lou might not, Lou's not stupid. He looks at the roster and could go, yeah, this team's good enough to make the playoffs. And if they get to the playoffs, great. We'll see what happens. But yeah, we're probably an elite goal scorer away from winning. We're probably, another elite defender away from winning, whatever the case may be. But maybe he says, you know what? If the goal is to get into the playoffs, which it is, obviously they're chasing now, and this group had just won 3 in a row, maybe I don't give up assets right now and let them get in the playoffs. Let this group do it. Now, to me, like you saw other teams in the past, like, for example, last year, the Edmonton Oilers going to get like Nick Bukestad or like key depth pieces just to have extra depth pieces. Players that big body type, physical type of roles where why not? Make more competition going forward. Bring in guys and make people force their way into the lineup. And who knows, maybe one player plays one game, another player plays another, and just get as many bodies as you can. You don't know if after the deadline, if players are going to get hurt. And now you don't have that safety net. Now cap space is the issue. The Islanders cannot buy unless they sell. Even if it's a small piece like a Wallstrom, they have $135,000 in cap space,
which is essentially zero.
Exactly, right, which cap friendly shows as zero because it's useless.
Right.
So if the Islanders are going to buy, they have to sell at least one or two pieces in a trade with getting the player back on a separate trade. But yeah, I think if Lou can go buy and just find ways to add more pieces that could help this team, whether it's strengthening the depth at the wingers or even the defense in case there's an injury, or just having another seventh defenseman, things like that. He definitely should, because those types of deep depth players aren't going to cost you too much and certainly won't cost you a first-round pick.
And I guess there's nothing Lou can do roster-wise internally to create some kind of cap space, right, as far as injuries go or anything like that?
He definitely can.
So who would be potentially in the mix for something like that?
I did a story at the Hockey News this morning about it, and what you could do is Matt Martin is hurt. Again, I don't think Lou, if Matt Martin's fine, like day-to-day, I don't think Lou's going to put him on LTIR. That would keep him out till the end of March. Mm-hmm. But that's $1.5 million if he's on LTIR that comes off the books. Okay. Scott Mayfield has missed, he missed the Tampa game, 1, 2, 4. He's missed 4 games. Mm-hmm. He makes $3.5 million.
That's significant.
Again, if he's going to be out, he hasn't skated yet.
Okay.
So if he's going to be out at least 10 games and 24 days, so I think that's longer than the 10 games, so you might have to miss maybe an 11 or whatever. Mm-hmm. If Lou knows that he's going to be out that long, or the chance of him being out that long is high, it's another 3.5 off the books. So right now, if Martin and Mayfield went off, that's $5 million. Now Hudson Fashion you could activate, so it's like $4.2 million now you have in cap space without even moving Pajot.
Right.
Magic. Again, right. I don't think Lou's going to do it if those guys are healthy. He kind of needs them.
Right.
To an extent.
Right.
But that's $4.2 million you just created where you don't, Lou might not want to trade Pajot. Well, first of all, I don't think Lou wants to trade Pajot. Mm-hmm. It's a business, though, and if you need to create cap space and you can't do the Mayfield LTIR, you can't do the Martin LTIR, and you want to activate Fashion, you got to create, and of course, Pajot is expendable now, and given that he makes $5 million, that allows a lot. But if he can find a way to keep his players, whether that's keep a Wahlstrom and not have to trade him, or keep a Pajot and create cap space another way, yeah, imagine having Pajot still here, and so your center depth's still there. You could still run Nelson and also adding. That's probably what Lou would want to do in theory. Mm-hmm. We'll see if that's even possible.
So give me your gut instinct here. Mm-hmm. We obviously have a week left. We don't know what's going to transpire in these games coming up, but you don't even have to name a specific name, but what do you think Lou is going to do?
I think he's going to get a depth forward.
Okay.
I think the defense right now, we will get to in a little bit about roles and things like that, but I just think if he has cap space to do it and doesn't have to move a first-round pick, just why not get depth forwards? Again, you never know with injuries. After the deadline, you're not going to make trades. You can't make trades. So you might as well have a safety net, things like that, and make some more competitive, bring more competitive players in here that could just push other players. You never know. One acquisition, they could all rally together and say, we don't want this guy. You ever see Miracle? They bring the guy from college in at the practice after, and then all the players what is this? We don't want this.
Right.
Now, obviously, you wouldn't do that to the players bringing in, but if you could bring in a depth forward, a depth center, just things like that, just in case, and you have the cap space, that's what I would do. You could go get a depth defender as well, things like that. You do have Samuel Bolduc on the conditioning stint, and he's counting against your cap and a roster spot, so in theory, he's your extra guy.
Right.
But yeah, if you have the cap space to go get a depth player and really bulk up and be as competitive as possible going into the playoffs or on the playoff run, I would do that.
All right, well, we'll get back to the trade deadline stuff. I'm sure we'll talk about plenty about it with Justin Bourne. We'll talk about it during questions, Bourne. But now, let's go to What's on Tap.
It's time for What's on Tap, brought to you by A1 VIP Entertainment.
That's right, folks. It's time to look ahead to the New York Islanders' upcoming schedule, and we will start with Tuesday. The Islanders get a chance to get a little revenge on the St. Louis Blues. We saw them recently. Obviously, they lost that game in interesting fashion. Quick goals did them in, and they were unable to recover from that. So, tough team over there. Binnington obviously shut the door in that game. He played great. We'll see if he gets to start in this one, and he ends up doing the same thing. But just another tough game. They head out west here. They're 8-11-6 versus West team, so obviously the record isn't that great out there. But again, another team that's definitely beatable, and another 2 points they need.
Yeah, 32 seconds, allowing 3 goals for a game that they actually played really well in. Binnington stood tall. Now, Jake, just double check for me, but I'm pretty sure it's the second of a back-to-back for St. Louis.
That I don't know. That I didn't look into.
Jake will check it out. But if that's the case, we'll see who starts. But again, you're at the point of the season that when you play teams on the second of a back-to-back, was that right? Yep. Nailed it.
Look at you.
Look at me. You're at the point of the season now when you're playing a team on the second of a back-to-back. You have to. If you come out the way, first off, the Islanders come out the way they came out against Boston, against any team, again, easier said than done. they give every team no chance to get to their game. And especially a team on the second of a back-to-back where usually that first period's that team's best period because their legs are fresh. They're not out of the, the gas is not empty. But yeah, you got to come out hard. Again, they outplayed them last time they played them. They just couldn't solve the goaltending. And they had
I suppose because it is a back-to-back, they may not see Binnington.
Yeah, I think Hofer is their backup. He's been solid. But not, he doesn't have a lot of NHL experience. Pretty sure this is his first year.
Which means he'll shut the Islanders out.
Yeah, 55 save shutout. But right. Even to look at that Binnington game where he stood tall, sure, he made good saves early, but the Islanders had that, Palmieri on the goal line. That goes in. You might win that game.
Sure.
So I think for the Islanders, it's certainly crashed the net. They did not do that enough against Binnington last time. If they do what they did against Binnington, whoever's in goal, like they did with Ullmark, is just get shots on goal. If you hop on the rebound, I mean, in most games you're likely to win. But talking in the locker room after the other side of things last night in Boston, Marchand or Montgomery, I'm trying to remember exactly what they said, but it said the Islanders just won Marchand. They just won every puck battle. That's what he goes. They just won. They got to every puck battle first, and when you do that, you're so dangerous because it creates more chaos for the opposing team.
Right.
Everyone's out of sorts. And Palmieri's goals, were they hard goals to score? I mean, I can't score them, but for an NHL player, I mean, right there, rebounds are right there. And early on, they realized Ullmark's rebound control wasn't amazing. And again, if the first couple of shots on a goalie are really hard, low shots with traffic in front, he's not going to be able to get into a rhythm because the rebounds are going to pop out. He's just trying to make the saves. And when you score 1 or 2 goals early, a lot of goalies have a hard time, once his rebound control is off, he had a hard time finding it again. So I think against the Blues, especially if it is Binnington, we talked about it. The key was to get in his head, make his life as difficult as possible, get him angry, things like that, and you'll find a way to win. They didn't do that last time they were in St. Louis. Now that they're hosting St. Louis, they know how to beat this guy. They got to figure out a way to get to the net.
I was just going to say, I think I misspoke and said they were going into St. Louis, but it is at home on Tuesday. And then Thursday, they get another chance of revenge against the San Jose Sharks.
The fact that you had to put that in a sentence, yeah.
Yeah, that was probably their first big embarrassing win of the season, if I can recall correctly.
That was the sin game.
The sin game, yes. Losing that game was a sin. Yeah. Lane Lambert.
Yeah, pouring out.
Pouring out for Lane.
Yeah, this is a game that you can, especially if things go well against St. Louis.
Sure.
And that's 4 in a row, right? And day before the trade deadline. Listen, you got it. The Sharks are terrible. I don't know why I did this, but I watched the Ducks-Sharks game the other day, and the Ducks will be someone they play after that.
Right.
I was like, geez, why am I, it's like 1 in the morning because it's a late game. Like,
sure.
Why am I watching this? But they got to a point in the third period where the Sharks had about 8 or 9 chances to clear the zone just by skating it out, and they lose the puck. Like,
sounds familiar.
It was worse. And I'm thinking the Ducks, who are like one of the worst teams in the league, are dominating the Sharks. This is a very bad Sharks team. And again, the Islanders blew that game. They killed themselves in that game. The Sharks played solid, of course, but the Sharks are very bad. And if the Islanders lose that game, that could probably be detrimental. That could be there's a lot of reasons why they'd be up. We looked last year they lost 2 games to the Coyotes. And you look back and said, well, the reason that they had to wait till game 82 was because of that. They lose 2 games to the Sharks this year and they missed the playoffs by 2 points.
There's no excuse for losing that game. Listen, you play a team like that earlier in the season, maybe you take them a little lightly, you play down to them, it happens all the time. But given the stakes, given the fact that it's the day before the deadline, they have to just collect every point that they can. They have to come out like they're the Boston Bruins. They have to come out like San Jose is the Boston Bruins and play them tough, play up to a level that they can.
I love how you're saying this about the San Jose Sharks. No, it's true.
But it's the truth. Like they have to come out and just take care of business. Like go up by 3 goals and then hold on.
They got to do exactly what they did last time they played them.
Right.
They actually don't watch that game back and don't change a damn thing you did in that first or second period.
Right. And then just close it out.
And who knows? Maybe Duclair will be on the other side of things.
You never know. You never know. Anything could happen. So only 2 games before our next show. So that's it. St. Louis Tuesday, the Sharks on Thursday. That's what's on tap for the Isles. Now I'm going to tell you what's on tap for A1 VIP Entertainment featured events. Friday, March 22nd, Fall Out Boy at MSG. Saturday, March 30th and Sunday, March 31st, Zach Bryan at UBS Arena. And baseball season is just around the corner, and A1 VIP Entertainment can get you 50% off for select Yankee games this season. Call 516-787-0048. Mention Hockey Night New York for 10% off the features events, and you can also get that 50% off of select Yankee games. One call does it all. Now, let's talk about the heroes of the week. Ladies and gentlemen, when you hear this song, that means it is time for the Hero of the Week, brought to you by the Blue Line Deli and Bagels half-price hero, which this week is The Godfather, featuring Cappy Ham, Genoa salami, pepperoni, provolone, lettuce and tomato, oil and vinegar on a hero. Oilers and vinegar?
Yeah.
Stefen Rosner, with that out of the way, who is your Hero of the Week?
My Hero of the Week is Kyle McLean, and not because he scored a big goal. It is because his rise in this organization from being an undrafted free agent, signing an ELC, all that kind of stuff, is the reason why the Islanders were able to make their line changes, why Waugh felt comfortable making the line changes, because you had a 4C. You could upgrade to Zekas, you could move Pajot to the number 2 role, and you could put Nelson on the wing. If McLean doesn't prove to be a reliable center, Islanders aren't making these line changes. And for that, that allowed the Islanders to really open up what they wanted to do, and now they're 3-0 with these lines.
So Stefen, for the record, you think that's more heroic than the quickest hat trick in Islanders history?
No, but I figured you would pick him, so, you know.
All right, that's fine. That's fair.
Mine made sense.
Nothing wrong with going off the board every now and then. But for me, pretty obvious here. Kyle Palmieri, yes, pasta power. Huge breakout game for him. Nice little hat trick. Does it in style, and obviously breaks the Islanders record for the quickest hat trick. This is a guy who, he's had his struggles with injuries. His goal totals probably haven't been where the Islanders want them to since he's come over, outside of maybe having some good playoff performances. But, this is a guy who has to step up, and he picked a great game to do it. Beating the Boston Bruins, looked great. I think now he's got, 17 on the season, which I think is the highest total. It might be 18.
Yeah.
But it's his highest total playing for the New York Islanders since he came over, which is great to see. Looks like he's got a really good chance of cracking that 20 spot, maybe even 25, which would be great if he can stay healthy. So for me, Kyle Palmieri, and, and credit to Patrick Waugh for making those line changes. I wanted to note this before, but, as you kind of alluded to, you looked at that and said to yourself, oh, that does look a little top heavy. I loved the first line, but I was like, what's the rest of that lineup going to do? And to see the way they came out against Boston was pretty inspiring, and now we just got to see if that's something they can do on a regular basis.
For sure. Palmieri, again, unreal game for him, and he has the most points as well since joining the Islanders, so.
There you go.
Yep.
There you go. So there's your heroes of the week. Kyle Palmieri, 2 Kyles, and Kyle McLean,
Yes.
not Kirk.
Yeah, not Kirk.
Not Kirk McLean. So now I'm going to tell you all about Main Street Board Game Cafe in Huntington Village on Long Island's North Shore. Games for sale and for open play. Food and drink, beer and wine, fun, and friends. Bring the magic of phones down, eyes up, tabletop board games to your family. Our staff will help you find the right game, from old favorites to the hottest new releases. We have everything from strategic to easy party games. Get off your screens for a night your family will remember. Looking for meetups to join? Our Magic the Gathering, Dungeons & Dragons, Lorcana, and organized play communities are welcoming for all. We also do parties and corporate events located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Go to mainstboardgamecafe.com for more information. Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd, unplug your game, and now we're going to go to break, and Justin Bourne from Sportsnet will be joining us.
Hear it. It's over. I can't believe they fell short again.
Yeah, but they played so well. They made it to the semifinals 2 years in a row.
The semifinals aren't the cup. God damn it. I hate those Lightning.
They'll get another shot at it next year.
I don't even want to talk about it anymore, all right? They lost, okay? Let me just sit here and enjoy the one thing that makes me a little bit happy. This fresh, delicious, tasty, meaty, turkey-filled Blue Line combo. I eat 3 every day to help keep me strong.
Hey, Donnie, can I have one of those?
Coming right up. Talk about a blast from the Blue Line.
Blue Line Deli and Bagels. Our goal is to make you a hero.
Attention all artists, storytellers, and creators of all kinds. It's time to make your content stand out above the rest, and Floored Media is the place to make your visions become a reality. Maybe you want to elevate your podcast and add some video, or turn that novel you wrote into an audiobook. Or maybe you just need the right space to produce your daily vlog. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, Floored Media has the professional facilities, exceptional staff, and intimate atmosphere to breathe life into your creative passions at every step of the process.
Thanks for giving some time to our sponsors. Ready to talk more Isles? The train rolls on, right here on Hockey Night in New York.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for On the Line. And joining us right now from Sportsnet is Mr. Justin Bourne. Justin, welcome back to the program. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How you guys doing?
Doing good, feeling pretty good after a 3-game winning streak for the New York Islanders. So I thought maybe I'd start by asking, have you had a chance to catch a lot of Islander hockey this season?
You know, I would say I've watched more Islanders hockey this season than most. This is probably the most I've watched in the last 10 years. I wouldn't say I've seen the most in the past 2 weeks, but I have been following the, oh my God, the Isles are in trouble. People in Toronto are trying to get Brock Nelson to, oh my God, the Isles are winning. Are they going to start trading for assets and trying to make a push here? So it's been a roller coaster.
Exactly, and that's kind of what I wanted to get your take on is just, you know, last week, Stefen and I were almost starting to allude to the fact that the season looks like it might be heading in the wrong direction. Here we are a week later, 6 out of 6 points. They're in striking distance of the teams ahead of them. So you look at this team now under Patrick Waugh, it looks like they might finally be acclimating themselves to his system and his methods. Is this a team that's got a shot to make the dance and get people on Long Island excited again?
100% it is. You know, if you look at like the Ottawa Senators after they got Jacques Martin, they were terrible for 10 games. Like their numbers were worse than when DJ Smith was there. And then they kind of got it sorted out. And all of a sudden it's like, all right. I remember looking at their stats after 20 games and going, God, they're no better with Martin and Alfredson than before. But then you teased it by 10 and 10, and there's a huge difference. And so, it takes a little time with the new coach. And I think it's encouraging that they've started to put some good hockey together. There's too many good players on this team for it not to be at least a competitive team. I think they're a good veteran group, so if they got in, you would like their chances. And then you look at how they would have to get in. You need someone to drop out, but that could be any of Philly, Detroit, who is it ahead of them there to Tampa. There's a few teams. You just need one of them to stumble, and if they play decent going home, I like their odds of getting in.
Yeah, Justin, thanks so much for joining us. Matthew Barzal is he's going to have his best season since his Calder winning season. If you got him to watch him play a little bit here, what has really stood out to you this year as opposed to maybe years past with his game?
You know, I guess I found sometimes that he was really, really elite at getting the puck from his own end to the other end with not a ton of purpose at times. I don't know if maybe having Horvat with him kind of puts that guy who can end those rushes or at least create a dangerous shot if it ends up on his stick. In the past, sometimes it didn't feel like the guys he were playing with it did a lot of good. Sometimes he was lugging the mail up there and there was nothing to be done with it. So I don't know, it just feels like they're ending in dangerous plays more often. And that's going to, more assists off those shots and more rebounds from there and more chaos. I definitely give Horvat some credit for helping him take it to another level.
For sure, Justin. And you mentioned the trade deadline and how maybe a week ago it looked like Lou might be in a position to sell. They rattle off these wins, and now you wonder, are they in buy mode? They have a couple of games here before Friday's deadline. What's your gut here? Where do you think Lou goes? And is there anybody that maybe you think might be on their radar?
Well, Lou is not one to give up on people he's committed to. So, I don't think you're going to see a big name go out by any stretch. And I do think that he's way more likely to say, we have committed to trying to have success. We're in a new rink. The fans are there. I think they are going to add a piece, if anything. And to me, it's, the Isles are a couple pieces away from being better than people think. I look at before I came on, I was looking at some of their underlying numbers. Their defensive numbers are atrocious, but they actually don't give up. They're actually first in expected goals against to actual goals against. So they don't give up as many as you think they would based on their expected goals. And then it's kind of the other way. They're really high in expected goals. They're in the top 10 now in offense, but they're near the bottom in actual goals. So I expect those ones to come. I just feel like a little tweak here and there. Would a guy like Tarasenko come in and shoot a few more in the net, like a finisher, someone who could just end some of these rushes, or even someone, just to help push the puck up the ice a little bit more often, play driver. I can't think of any names offhand that fit exactly the mode, but, I just don't think they're that far off and there's room for improvement. So I hope they add a piece or two and make it really hard on, maybe the Rangers in round one.
Yeah, you had mentioned Toronto maybe looking at a guy like a Brock Nelson, and we all agree here that he would not get moved. But in terms of just value, if hypothetically speaking, the Islanders were going to move Nelson, how much really could they get back for this guy?
Oh my God! Well, you just look around the league, the names that people are talking about, Adam Henrique or whatever. Adam Henrique, Nelson is 6'3", 215. He's going to score 35 goals for the third straight season. Like he's just a veteran guy, like playoff build. I think he has, in his last 55 playoff games, he has 22 or 23 goals, like great playoff numbers. So yeah, you're looking at firsts on first to me. Like it's whether it's a couple of firsts and a prospect, or I know the Islanders are more eager to win sooner than later. So maybe not first, maybe top end prospects rather than that, or even young guys in the league. It would be, but you would have people falling all over themselves to give you assets, which is always tempting, but you want to try to win games when you have good players.
Yeah, and going from Brock Nelson to another center, and Jean-Gabriel Pageau now playing as a second-line center, Kyle McLean being in the lineup kind of makes him a little bit expendable. He has term on his deal, I guess. Pageau is a player performer because he wins faceoff, kills penalties, but do you see in a situation where the Islanders really could move him to a contender? Because again, most contenders probably don't have the cap space.
Yeah, no, that's true. One thing I will say is that teams have gotten really good about figuring out how to move money around, right? Like in terms of double retention, like the 2 deals we've seen so far have been double retained. So, for Pageau, double retained, you're looking at 1.25 is what you'd pay, right? It's 2.5 and then retained again. So, you would love Pageau at that number.
Sure.
So all of a sudden, he becomes an asset if you can get it to that number. But $5 million, you're right. There's not a lot of teams going, yeah, that's what we want to do with $5 million per season,
We're talking to Justin Bourne of Sportsnet. Justin, let's go broad in the NHL here. What other teams that are vying for the Cup going to be looking like players at the trade deadline? Obviously, you mentioned things like being able to fit guys under the cap, getting creative. But what teams do you think are going to be more active than the others when we get to Friday? And, maybe even throw some players out there that you might think are on the move.
Yeah, I think Florida looks at itself as a legitimate Stanley Cup, if not contender, if not a favorite, a contender. Noah Hannafin has kind of been associated with them. Their decor is really good. I look at the teams who've won cups the last couple of years and look at Vegas's decor. They're, Pietrangelo, Theodore, Haig, White Cloud, anyway, whoever else it is, they're loaded. Martinez and someone else. Go back to Colorado and they were Makar and Byram and Josh Manson, good. They're loaded on D. So anyone who thinks they're legit is trying to get D. Tanev going first is big. A second and a top prospect is big. So, it's going to be expensive for teams, but so looking around the league, is there anyone that is not a UFA that teams would say, we don't care, we just want a chance to win? And so maybe that's a guy like Colton Parayko, who's a huge right shot D, who still has some term. Could someone say, hey, we were, maybe this is the thing that puts us over the top? So I just think teams are going to have to look beyond. Usually it's like, who's a UFA? That's who's available. I think you need to kind of go, remember Tampa Bay got Hagel when he was like an RFA with 3 years left? Like, it's those guys now where you go, we're going to spend out the back end here for to have this guy for years, but he's got term and he's young. So I think they're just going to look at different type of players this year.
Can you just explain the Lyubushkin deal? Just in your, again, from an outside point of view, again, you saw what the Tanev deal was. We know Lyubushkin's not Tanev, but just in your mind, why Toronto, why that was the guy they want to get? I know obviously he had played there, things like that, but why they really settled there?
I think it's like, you go to a terrible restaurant and you're starving and you have to order something. You have to pick something, and the Leafs have no money, so they got no assets to spend. They literally have no right shot D. Last 2 games they played all 6 left shot D. So they're like, we need a right shot D. We need someone who's tough, who kills penalties, who's you go through the list. And we only have, you're searching in your pockets, 10 nickels. And it's like, it's Lyubushkin. You're not picking from a whole, a great list of options. But what has happened is Riley in the past has shown that with a guy who just plays defense, he's freed up to be a way better version of himself. He was awesome with Luke Shen in the playoffs last year. He played great with Ron Hainsey years ago. And he was fine with Lyubushkin when he was here last time. So I think this is you don't like it, but you have to do something.
For sure. And Justin, I've kind of been doing the tour of with all the guests coming in here asking about the Patrick Waugh move. Just curious to get your opinion, your thoughts on the Islanders bringing him in, the shockwaves that it sent around the league, and maybe, fill us in on what the conversation's been up there in Canada about Patrick Waugh going to the Isles.
Yeah, well, I love it. So when I heard the name, I was like, I was never a big Waugh booster because I thought he was like, unstable. Just so competitive, so angry, so at times ego driven. I saw all that post career and in Colorado, and then I really took time to learn about Waugh, as a lot of people did after the hiring, but not just after the hiring. I had heard a bit before the hiring about how he had almost humbled himself a little bit, spending a lot more time in junior than he had anticipated. Working his way back and having success with the young kids and the grassroots part of the game and all that. So my co-host, Nick Kyprios, was a part of a bid to buy the Ottawa Senators, and they were going to hire Patrick Waugh if they got the team. They had done their behind-the-scenes work on the guy they wanted, and they had made their mind up. And so Kipper had been telling me a little bit about all the reasons he saw this guy as perfect for now. The age he is, most coaches have the most success in their career in their second stop after they've kind of been through it a little bit. It just feels like the right time for a guy like Waugh to have success, and a bunch of veteran guys on Long Island who I think, again, who are good in playoffs. You look back at a guy who's been there before. I love it. I think it's a great fit at a great time.
Bourne bomb, Hockey Night in New York there. But so you talk about Waugh being a good fit there, but were you shocked that Lou was the guy that hired a guy like Patrick Waugh? It makes a little more sense now when you think about it, but for Lou to be the guy that hires the guy that walked away in Colorado, that guy that wanted power and control, that Lou's the guy that brings him in.
Yeah, totally. But I think it makes it very clear that Patrick Waugh is going to be the coach. Lou wouldn't hire him to have input on personnel. It's like he's going to be there and be the coach because Lou doesn't mess around in that way. But also Lou likes, he likes strong opinions and driven people. But he also, if you look at his hiring, he's hired exclusively French coaches. And I don't know what it is about that he likes, but it's funny. Whether it's Jacques Martin or I don't know, you go through the list of his coaches and everyone's got this Waugh-like French accent. He likes them. So I guess there's ways you can squint and go, I guess it kind of falls in line with his previous hires, but personality-wise, I was surprised at first.
I have one more for you here. Cal Clutterbuck is a guy that if the Islanders were going to sell, Lou would probably go and say, hey, do you want to go somewhere? For a guy like Toronto, who this entire summer was pretty much getting physical gritty, is that a guy that kind of would make sense there? Again, I don't think it's going to happen, but Toronto may be looking at a guy like that.
It would be perfect. Yeah, it would be perfect. He would be the perfect player for them. I mean, you'd like to have him 3 years ago, or whatever you think in terms of his prime is. But or not just his prime, just to have him because they've been missing a guy like that who runs into everything and wears his heart on his sleeve, and he's a hockey player, man. I think he's awesome, and the Leafs have been struggling to find a guy like that. So in their effort to get a little bit more physical, the back end now has Lyubushkin, Jake McCabe, and Simone Benoit. They all hit everything that moves. They've added Ryan Reeves. They got Domi and Bertuzzi or a little whatever. So a guy like Clutterbuck, all of a sudden you might look at the Leafs and go, yeah, their star players are the softest guys of the league, but at least this guy, everyone else is tough, because I think Clutterbuck would be a great fit for them.
And is the Austin Matthews goal scoring every second of every game getting old, or are you guys still enjoying that?
It's honestly, it's weird. It's weird to watch because it's not like watching McDavid where you're like, oh my God, that's the most special player on the ice. Where he dances through everyone. It's just it comes to him and he shoots it in the net every time. You're like, oh, I got an easy one tonight. And all of a sudden, 2 months later, you're like, I got an, tonight was an easy one. You're like, God, they just look easy. He just knows where to be. Picks his spots, and it's a gift, man. He knows how to finish.
Right on. And so, Justin, the last one I'll leave you with, going to put you on the spot a little bit here. You have a cup favorite for the West and a cup favorite from the East?
Yes, I do, and I don't like being on this show and saying them. But my cup favorite in the West is the Oilers. A team that was a great foe of my father's back in the day. So I just. Between watching their top six and, Connor McDavid's going to win a cup at some point. I don't know when it is, but he's ridiculous. And I think they'll make some ads at the deadline. And then in the East, it's a lot more uncertain. I don't think it's the Rangers. I'm proud to say I don't think they're that
That's
great.
who I was afraid you were going to say, actually.
No, definitely not. But I do think Florida is right now head and shoulders above everyone else. You know why? Because they're mean. They're just mean and unpleasant to play. And they've got a few elite guys, and Bob's playing well. They're going to be a tough team to get past.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you need in the playoffs. Well, Justin, pleasure having you back on the show. Awesome stuff. Really appreciate it. And have a great rest of your Sunday night.
Yeah, love it, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Justin.
All right, folks, that was Justin Bourne of Sportsnet and obviously, of course, of New York Islander royalty. Pleasure to have him back on the program. So, Stefen, what do you think? Oilers, Panthers in the finals?
Honestly, I think Vegas.
Yeah?
You look at how, again, Mark Stone out with, I don't know what he did to his spleen. I don't know the correct medical terminology, but he effed up his spleen.
Okay.
And he's out. So obviously, there have been a situation before where Mark Stone's missed time. I think Jack Eichel's been getting back on the ice and practicing, not ready to go yet. I think their GM said that he had to clear some more hurdles, but they're just so deep. And they have the LTIR. They could do the LTIR game now because of Stone. I think Stone's out for the entire rest of the regular season, maybe start of the playoffs. I'm not saying what happened, but they could fit a guy like a Brock Nelson, a Jean-Gabriel Pageau. Go get any winger they really want. They're just already so deep, and they have the goaltending, the depth goaltending. I can see them repeating. I really can. But Florida, I mean, we could see the same cup again. I agree.
Sure,
I agree with Bourne there that McDavid's going to win it at some point.
Right.
Until I see them have a goaltender that really just you could trust. Again, I like Skinner a lot. But in terms of like just trusting and having a goalie like that, it's really hard because McDavid could be the greatest player on the ice with Leon Draisaitl. And if they don't get the depth scoring and they don't get the depth defending and their goaltenders don't make the saves at the right time, they have no shot. They could go as far as those guys can carry them, but in the playoffs, you're playing against the best teams. If they could shut down McDavid and Draisaitl and they're playing on the same line in certain games, it's not that hard, the rest of that lineup. But Florida, I agree. Besides Nick Cousins, putting on an Oscar-worthy performance every night after disappointing decisions and stuff, he might be the dirtiest guy in the league. But again, in the playoffs, that pays off.
Yeah, and you get worried about who he might, focus his attention on. I'd almost be afraid to play Florida in the playoffs just because he might, pull off some of those shenanigans. But you got to get there
People
first.
from Florida, right?
Indeed, Florida, man. But listen, I know you put together a list of potential players the Islanders might be targeting here for the trade deadline. Maybe you can just pick out a couple of key guys that we can key in on, and then we can move forward.
Yeah, so let's pick out, I think Jordan Eberle, certainly an option. I do think he's going to end up staying in Seattle. Seattle's in the same kind of spot that the Islanders are where they could make it. If not, and why would they move a guy like Jordan Eberle if they can make it?
Right.
Tarasenko, despite saying that he would only waive to go to a contender, I think he's an option. Bourne just mentioned it, having a guy like Tarasenko on that top line. A couple other names, depth guys. Jason Zucker makes $5.3 million. Nick Bukestad, a center winger guy, a big body PKer. Another option, depth guy.
Okay.
Middlestat on Buffalo is not being talked about enough. They're definitely shopping him.
Okay.
He makes 2.5. He's arbitration eligible, and he's an RFA.
Okay.
As a number 2 center, young kid, long-term, didn't fit in Buffalo.
Okay.
Maybe an option. And then on the back end, I think Chychrun, dream ad, 4.6 over the next 2 years per year. Next 2, he's got a modified no trade clause. 10-teamer in Hannafin if you get 4.95. 8-team no trade, pending UFA. Lock up guy on the left side on the back end to solidify your entire back end for years to come.
Right.
Think that another couple, again, Duclair I'm pretty high on in terms of how and why that would work so well. Played 2 years under Watt Juniors, $3 million cap it. Sharks, a rebuilding team that would definitely take a flyer on a 23-year-old Oliver Wahlstrom. You wouldn't have to give up a first-round pick for that. So those are a couple there. I think I'm going to do a story tomorrow on actually all these 10. And then Pinto you could throw out there for sure. Don't think it's going to happen because he's not arbitration eligible. And there's literally no reason for Ottawa to move him. That being said, who knows if he wants to be in Ottawa long-term, things like that. If he doesn't want to be there and kind of forces Ottawa's hands, they might have to do what they don't want to do and move him. And could the Islanders, where he's from Franklin Square, I know he grew up a Ranger fan, but could the Islanders be an option? No one thought Horvat was coming to the Islanders, and Lou found a way to get that done. You have the Pageau connection with Ottawa. You give up Wahlstrom again. The Drinket deal that never happened. You can throw picks there. Again, if you bring Pinto in, you're locking up as your number 2 center. Keep Nelson on the wing. And again, having a guy like that who's young, who's hungry to win, and maybe doesn't want to be in Ottawa long term, since we haven't heard anything about a contract extension, who knows? I don't think it's likely, but you never know.
It'd be crazy to see Lou swing for the fences again and make a deal like that coming out of
For
nowhere.
now, though, again, it's everyone's like,
Yeah.
you can't go up the first thing. But if you get a guy like Pinto or a Chikrin or a Hannafin, those guys that have higher cap hits that are going to acquire, they're there for the future to help build this team and keep this team going.
Yeah, and based on the contracts that we've discussed on this team and the guys that they've committed to already, they're trying to win here. You know what I mean? So they may be looking to make a deal that's going to surprise us. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but, would we be shocked if Lou, pulls a rabbit out of his hat and figures out a way to not only make the move, but also create the space? And he's probably not that concerned about another first rounder if he has to give it up, to be honest, just to put it towards this now team that he has right now,
And again, first round pick for the Islanders, what, 13th to 16th in the draft? It's like it's not like everyone thinks that Lou, when he trades the first round picks, he's trading the number 2 overall pick every time he trades it.
Well, it only becomes a problem if they tank between now and the end, which obviously, but he can put protections in there. He's done that before where you can, shift it over to the following year or something like that if certain measurements are made, within the trade and all that. So we'll see. I definitely think Lou now is going to be more a buyer, if anything, just because of what they've shown in the last week. But the good thing is, I guess for him, he's got another couple of games to help him make a decision before he gets to Friday. But it'll be interesting nonetheless. But before we break for questions, Bruin, why don't we go to the Snake Den and see what Jake has for us over there? Jake the Snake, how we doing?
Welcome to the Snake Den with Jake the Snake.
Yeah, last week we had a Pizza Sports Guy. He helped me out with my takes. So we actually took a trip there yesterday.
There you go.
Deer Park
yes,
location.
We did.
Cafe Dolce Vita. Phenomenal pizza.
Yes,
definitely recommend
excellent.
if you're in the Deer
Excellent.
Park or Jericho area, make a stop over there. So shout out Pizza Sports Guy. Awesome guy.
Yes.
Yeah, he was all right. No, I'm kidding. He was great.
No, he was great. He made a
He's
nice
great.
big spread for us. We got to sample all the different slices, and they were fantastic.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. Want to give a happy early birthday shout out to our own Stefen Rosner over
Stefen,
there.
birthday boy coming up. Look at that.
Yeah.
I heard it's also your brother's birthday.
It is. It's crazy how things work out, But I can drink now. Fine. No, I'm kidding.
Congrats, pal.
Turning 26 off the insurance
Wow.
birthday. Gotta
Oh
love
my
it.
God.
No, it's gonna be good. It should be fun. And then I'm going off to California.
You're getting so big.
I'm not getting. No, I'm not. That's the one thing I'm not. I'm not getting taller. But it is what it is. It is.
All right,
Appreciate
buddy.
it, Jake. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Nice, Jake.
My take this week is about Sebastian Aho. I think that we
Okay.
saw his best play of this year this past week, especially that Detroit game. He made 2 crucial plays in front of the net to break up pucks that might have found their way in the back of the net and possibly change the outcome of that game. So we don't know what's going on with Scott Mayfield, but I think that Aho has cemented himself as being a guy you can rely on. And whether that's for the Islanders or if he's a possible trade piece,
okay.
I think he's made a statement that he could play in the NHL and he could play an everyday role.
All right.
So Jake the Snake just said that Aho Mayfield depth chart.
Interesting.
No, I'm kidding. He didn't actually say that. But
Don't quote me on that.
But it is worth that conversation at this point. Again,
Sure.
like we talked about, if the Islanders, you don't ever change the lineup. Again, if the Islanders acquired Connor McDavid, they're not going to make him sit until they lose. But Islanders are playing great. If Mayfield was activated tomorrow, do you take Aho out? Riley and Aho have played well together.
When you're riding 3 wins, you're not taking anybody out.
Which would tell you that Aho at this point, again, the whole year you thought, well, if Mayfield comes out, is Aho
He's had
better?
a tough season.
Yeah,
He's had a tough season. Injuries have definitely, had a lot to do with it, but he's had a tough year.
So listen, if Aho could do, and like Jake said too, is if the Islanders are not going to move a guy like Pajot, and they have to move a guy like Wallstrip, and they got to move a guy like Aho, even the small dollar amounts, $800,000, is going to pay dividends with bringing in just maybe 1 or 2 guys that gets you where you want to go, things like that. So we talked about how Riley acquisition kind of made Aho expendable, just a better Riley. Excuse me, Riley's just a better Aho. But the way he's played, maybe you get him, maybe it's a 4th, right? 4th round pick, but it's something where there's maybe before the season starts no one would ever go for him.
Right.
Now he's played well and he showed speed and he showed that he's, he could play a poised role as a 7th defender or bottom 6 guy, bottom pairing guy. Great point by Jake there.
He's definitely taken a long trajectory on this team. I mean, I remember, within the last year or 2, we were talking about Robin Salo basically supplanting. Exactly. And look how that's went. And credit to Aho. He's put his time in and, he's definitely come in and out of the lineup a lot. I'm sure that can be frustrating for any player, but he's stuck with it. And yeah, he's definitely grown and he looks like a pretty serviceable 6'7" D-man. So Jake, nice take, pal.
Thank you. You think he's the best Sebastian Aho in the league?
Oh, without question.
Yeah, no doubt.
Definitely the best one in New York.
I'll definitely say that, yeah.
For sure. So that was Jake's take. Now I'm going to tell you all about Isles Fix. Islanders Country, get your daily fix of Isles news, highlights, and analysis by subscribing to Isles Fix, the only Monday through Friday Islanders newsletter sent directly to your inbox. Sign up for free or become a paid subscriber for added benefits at islesfix.substack.com. And now we're going to take a break. When we come back, it's time for Questions Brewing.
It's time for Questions Brewing. So go ahead, ask us a question.
Ask us a question. It's time for Questions Brewing. How we doing over there, Ed and Jay?
We're doing good. We're doing good.
You sure?
Yeah.
That was a compliment.
I left you a little. You were muted the first half second of that.
Oh, nicely done. Excellent.
So I
So
guess
how
we're
you
not
doing?
doing well. Yeah.
So the question is, how are you doing?
We're doing all right. I think we're doing okay. Stefan's got a big birthday coming up. Hopefully, get some nice presents.
Yep.
You know, it's good stuff. So, what's going on in the chat, pal?
We're chatting. We're more lively this week than ever.
Okay.
It seems like.
Love that.
People are just talking, trades.
Trades,
nothing,
sure.
Nothing out of the ordinary.
Okay.
Is
T. Boyle among us?
Wait, did you just speak?
Yeah, he did.
Jay
that
spoke?
was weird.
Wow.
Everyone loves Justin. I mean, how could you not? Justin's a great guest.
Absolutely.
But yeah, why don't we kick it off with a question?
Let's do it.
How about Phlebotinum 1?
Let's go.
Anybody last night noticed the, quote, layers defensively that we used to see under Trotz, where an attacker may get by one player, but there's someone else there to defend? It's been missing for the last while. Hope it's a trend.
Yeah, it's called support. And that's what every good team in the league does is, there's a lot of times where we talk about Sorokin masking issues, things like that, but there's a lot of times also where a defenseman will mask a forward's mistake. And the problem was earlier this year, especially under Lane, is there was no, a forward can make a mistake and the defenseman wasn't even there to cover. And you're seeing right now with the structure that, again, the Trotz structure, it's not the same. Waz structure is not even defense oriented. It's just don't be bad defensively. But support, it's a huge thing. Every team needs it, and you can't just rely on your goalie to be the last. They're the last line of support, but they can't be the first support, which was happening so much. Where a breakdown would happen, two guys would mess up, and then it was Sorokin versus the world. Now, and you're seeing under Wass, Sorokin's not facing as many shots because there's layers of support, and especially last night, you saw it. Every time a mistake was made, which there weren't many at all, there was support, and that helps so much with transitioning too. It's maybe instead of going 200 feet, the Islanders have to go 160. It's not all the way deep in their zone. One guy makes a mistake, picked it off. I saw in the penalty kill, one guy stepped, and then I think it was Palmieri too. After scoring the hat trick, he's out there in the penalty kill. Pass gets through. They try to make one quick pass. Palmieri picks it off, and you're thinking, look at that.
Yeah, look, I don't want to get overexcited here because again, it's a little recency bias. Everybody's excited. Yeah, it's great to see, but for essentially the first time this season, we need to see some consistency with this stuff, and it's great, and it's nice to see that they actually have a defensive structure that's actually working, or at least has worked in a very small spot here. So hopefully they're finally getting it, because we've said it like time and time again how mind-boggling it's been. Where they've been part of successful defensive systems before. They've had the personnel that have carried that out, and then all of a sudden it's just like they had a memory wipe. And it just went out the window. So, it's nice to see that they got back to it. They looked great against Boston last night, and let's see if they can keep it up.
So I have a question for you.
Hey.
You just mentioned a great point about the fundamentals, things like that, and we said, how is it possible that they just forget?
Yeah.
If Wad gets them to get the fundamentals back, what does that say about this group? With what happened?
Well, I suppose it means that the new voice paid off, right?
Yeah, but again, I don't think it was just a lane issue. It
Sure.
was clearly the players had a lot to do with it.
Yes,
so,
yes.
So in your mind, if Watt could get them back to even being 80% what they were with Trotz, what does that just say about this group?
Well, I mean, that's why, we've been stubbornly saying that the Islanders are a better team that they're showing. And we've, earlier on in the season, we were still confident that they were a playoff team. And look, obviously it got shaky more recently. And, with the amount of games running out, you're like, okay, maybe this is who they are or who they're going to be this season, right? No, we've always had faith that this team was better than what they were putting out in the ice. And I think, all the leads that they had you go back week after week, and all the teams that they ran up the score on going up 2 or 3 goals ahead of them only to, let them come back. I mean, they played a lot of good teams well. They just couldn't close it out. They just didn't have that defense. So it does say that this team is capable, and now maybe they're finally playing up to their abilities.
What it tells me is that it was a mindset. We talked
mental, yes.
Yeah, we had been saying for the longest time that it was mental. It was mental. The players were saying it wasn't mental, but clearly, you don't just forget how to play that way. And it was a mindset of this is how you have to play. Understanding that again. So it was always clear they had the talent to get back to it. It wasn't just because everyone was saying, "Oh, they're just older. They can't do it." We're seeing right now again, a couple of games. Maybe the Detroit game wasn't great. You blow 2 third-period leads, but even against it's there.
Right.
It's there, and it was just a mindset and getting over that hurdle. And that's what Waz's been preaching is the mindset.
Indeed.
All right, that was the same question. I just want to make sure. All right.
As we've admitted, we do tend to give long-winded answers, so bear with us. Yes.
All right. Next up, MJ Beckman. Is Maggio the depth forward Rosner is referencing to push the team?
Did I reference it?
No, you mentioned earlier about.
So I was talking about trades.
Yeah.
Maggio is, to me, a combination of, and again, people are going to take this the wrong way, a combination of Cizikas' hard work, grit, and just ability to be that Energizer Bunny, and Matthew Barzal. The reason I mentioned Barzal is I'm not saying he's the best. Maggio's the same type of passer, but Maggio's edges are severely underrated. What he's able to do. You watched the goal he scored a couple of games ago where he opens up. The edge work he does to separate, create time and space, and score was magnificent. Today, he scored for a second straight game. Got a puck in tight, quick skate move, opened up a second, and he beat the goalie top shelf. So I think watching Maggio play, he's able to move around the ice and the IQ he has to make passes and make plays, but also finish. I mean, if the Islanders want to save the money and the assets to go get another depth forward, bring in a guy, first off, he's on a tear right now.
Right.
Playing the best out. You don't want to rush him. You don't want him to call him up and say, we're relying on you, but black aces in the playoffs, things like that. Maggio could probably provide you exactly what you're looking for on the market at a significantly lower cap hit, and it's not even give up an asset at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's always got to translate to the highest level, but it is encouraging to see what he's doing down there.
He's very, very hungry, very passionate guy. We saw it at rookie camp. We saw it during training camp, during preseason. Broke his nose in his first NHL shift in preseason, stays in the game. Just blocks a shot, leaves the game, comes back. So sort of a playoff mentality type of player. Again, he has to prove it at the NHL level that he could actually play that. But the heart and soul that every playoff team would love and a guy like Wow wants as a player, Maggio fits that bill for sure.
Love to hear it.
Next up from Mr. Tom Boyle. Do you see the Islanders standing pat?
Possible.
Definitely possible. Said it last week. Took a cue from Jake the Snake over there in the Snake Den. He thought that they would stand pat. I think because of the week they had, the chances have increased for them to be active. But because of the cap limitations, it's very possible that Lou, he's definitely working the phones one way or another, right?
Yeah, people forget that part. There could be trades all lined up that don't ever happen.
Right, but he also has to figure out a way to make a deal work. And because of the cap situation, it's going to be that much harder, I think, for him this year. So he might be forced into a situation where he stands pat, where he doesn't necessarily want to. So, maybe he's chatting with the Sharks about Duclair. Maybe he's chatting with somebody else, and, he either can't figure out how to move the salary out of the Islanders, or he can't find that third team to, maybe take on a portion of a salary. All this stuff has to fall into place. So I think Lou will be active. It's just a matter of whether he's able to pull something off.
And if he can't, and they go into the deadline on a 4-game winning streak, 5, because you have the Sharks game, they looks at the roster and says, I can't find a way to move X player to make the cap space. We just won 5 games in a row. Let them go. Let them prove it again. That's tough because we know that the Islanders are pieces away. And all the fans are saying, oh, what's the point of just getting in? Nothing. We're just going to get eliminated in the first round, whatever. Right. Obviously, that's not true. There's more. You have more likely of winning a cup, I feel like, as an 8 or 17 than winning the division. But whatever. Anything can happen when you get to the dance. Who knows?
Right.
So maybe Lou says, listen, I can't make it work. If I want to make it work, I got to give up a first for someone to take a contract and things that, you know what? We're playing well enough right now that this is the group that I built. I believe in them. Let's see what they can do. That way I don't have to give up and trade more assets than I need to for a team that I don't think maybe is a cup contender yet.
Okay.
Speaking of deadlines, Thomas Panic has a hypothetical
question
brewing.
I haven't heard that in a while.
If you were the GM of the team with the worst PK in the entire league, would you consider yourself a buyer at the deadline?
I think it's a fair question.
Well, I think it's fair if the team...
But if they're still contending, I mean, you know, you're not going to say, oh, well, our penalty kill is terrible.
All right, let's be fair. What happened last year?
What did happen? Tell us, Stefen.
The Islanders had the worst power play in the league.
Right.
Did they not buy?
Right.
They bought Horvat.
Right.
They bought Engvall.
Right.
But if they have just flip it. It's a PK is the same thing.
Look, I don't think a team is ever going to go into a situation like this, and I get it because it's like, what hope do they have if they can't keep the puck out of the net, in crucial situations like when they're a man down in the playoffs. I understand that, but this is a team that isn't just going to throw in the towel and say, well, our penalty kill sucks now, so it's going to be terrible when we get into the playoffs. You know what I mean? So, look, if Lou believes in this team and he believes that there's a move that can help benefit this team to close out the season to get into the playoffs, he's going to make it.
I don't know the exact numbers, but if you're going to look at the Islanders and break up their season and look at this stretch of games, these last three, as a different Islanders hockey with the new lines, because that's fair. The PK has actually been pretty good, and against Boston, who had scored 5 of 6 in the 2 games they played.
Gross.
Islanders PK last night was insanely good, stopping both Boston chances. I believe there was 2. So you got to look back and on the exact numbers.
Sure.
But if you're starting the season now, when it really counts with this new lineup, penalty kill's been fine.
I'll reserve.
Obviously, I'm
I'll
just
hold
saying,
back on saying it's fine.
If
but
Lou's going to buy based on this run,
right.
he's going to look at the stats based on what they're doing now, not what they did before
That makes sense.
the last week or two before this. So.
Edward.
Al72 asks, can we assume at this point that McLean has claimed a spot on this team?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. I earlier than I expected. I thought that might have happened. It might happen next year, but I don't see any reason to take this guy out of the lineup. Maybe you have some questions to answer if and when Hudson Fashion gets healthy and nobody else goes down. But he looks great to me. I think he belongs.
And just cap wise, $800,000.
Yeah.
To do a role that in the league nowadays, like a guy like Peugeot goes for, especially the cap going up, probably $5 to $7 million to get a shutdown guy to go against the league's best. $800,000.
Yeah, I don't know how many people had this guy on their radar going into this season, but when you look at who's coming off the cap next year, he's almost a godsend. Just a perfect player to throw into the lineup in a bottom 6 role when you probably have one or both of Matt Martin and Cal Clutterbuck leaving after the summer.
And that's why he was my hero. His growth and what he's able to do is allowing the Islanders to run the lines they want to do now. This does not happen if McLean doesn't come up during his first stint and show that he could be a hockey player. They don't have another center. They could have played Clutterbuck at center, but and it changes the deadline too.
Right.
If they didn't have the center and they wanted to try this, they got to go out and spend assets. And McLean's been a godsend for them.
Next up from Danny L. Is moving Pelech out for a large asset a possibility? He's visibly starting to decline, and this might be the best time to maximize his value.
I don't see any situation where they trade Adam Pelech, a guy that's, again, if you're talking about the defense getting back to where it was and Pelech slowing down, he's been hurt, things like that, you're going to rely on Pelech to still be here. Pelech's playing with Dobson, by the way, now.
Right.
So that's even another reason why. Why would they ever?
And did you see his overtime winner?
Yeah, sniper. Absolute sniper. I don't think, sure, in theory, that's the same thing with trading every top player that's turning, getting older. Is that, you might as well trade him now because the age thing. But what the Islanders want to do, given that the fact that, defense is still an issue this year and they're turning it around or trying to turn around with Waugh, I think Pelech's here to stay for his contract, same way Pulak is.
Even if he isn't performing to the level we've seen him perform previously, yeah.
The Wheel 89 says, I liked the Romanov trade. The roster gets younger and the player is much closer to contributing. What could be another similar type Lou move? Is someone like Shane Pinto, we discussed Shane Pinto before.
Yeah, again, when you trade a first round pick, you either got to get a prospect that you know is going to pan out, which it's kind of, you can't really do that. You don't know. Or a guy that's been in the league is young enough that the potential for him to, he's already established himself as clear-cut NHL player, but what's his ceiling? And you credit Lou, as Lou saw Romanov and wasn't getting a ton of minutes, wasn't being allowed really to shine with Montreal, that I could give up my first round pick. People are going to flip. I mean, Lou doesn't care, but I know that he's a guy that could play with Dobson for years to come and make that move. So if you're going for a guy like Pinto, which is different because you're talking about a guy that is flourishing right now. He's not hidden. Like getting a guy like Pinto would be tough because everyone in the league knows how good he is. I think Romanov is different because probably not that many teams are calling Montreal about him.
Yes.
About being a guy.
And I agree, and I absolutely think that those are the type of deals that Lou has to continue to look for because of this win now mentality where he needs guys that are already, along in their progression. They're guys that have, maybe, ideally have established themselves in the league and they still have room to blossom and grow into a role as we've seen Romanov do here with the Islanders. But I do think that those deals are easier made over the summer like he did with Romanov, over the draft. So, I don't know if that's something he can pull off at the deadline. If he does, fantastic. But, I think those are the deals that Lou's definitely got to look for. And because if you can just keep reminding yourself that this team isn't blowing it up anytime soon to rebuild, they're not going to have as big a reliance on the first rounders, even if you don't want to hear that. I think Lou's still going to be willing to move them if he can still get a young 23, 24, 25-year-old guy to put into the lineup now.
You have to remember the other team as well. Like Montreal had to move a left side defenseman. They had too many, and they got a first round back for it. So,
there you go.
Trache19 asks, didn't the Islanders and Rangers play last year on St. Patrick's Day? Is this going to be an annual thing? And will the New York Islanders do something to honor Claire Arbor?
So your first question, I do think it's a coincidence they're playing. I mean, listen, if the NHL marketing that way at MSG, I'm pretty sure for a second straight year on St. Patrick's Day or St. Patrick's Day weekend, whatever it is. Yeah, that's cool. It'll be fun. That'll be a fun time. Yeah, we didn't mention Claire Arbor passing away.
Yeah.
Thoughts and prayers, obviously, to her family. Yeah, I would think the Islanders will probably do something.
I think so.
At some point. Again, Al is obviously the guy. I mean, he was the guy for this franchise, making them who they are. Obviously, a legendary coach there. So, I think they'll do something. Obviously, they didn't do something the other day, but I'm pretty sure Brendan Burke and Bert Goring spoke about it. Goring said some great words. I know Stanley Fisher at the Hockey News, who obviously knew Claire, wrote a really good story about that. But yeah, they're definitely going to do something. I'm not saying no patch, obviously, and things like that, but she was on with Shannon Hogan, I think, a couple of years ago on MSG doing an interview. Definitely go back and watch that. That was cool. But yeah, she's a legend as well.
For sure.
DTMR asks, is the MSG crew heading out west?
Yes. I believe I talked to them yesterday that they are heading out west. Not everybody in terms of the truck, but the talent will be there.
Okay.
Cool. Another question from Tom Boyle. Is Fashing ready to play?
I mean, when you go down for a conditioning stint, you play in all 3 games, you're ready. The question is how long can Lou get away with not activating him?
Yes, exactly.
Like, how much is it waking up the next morning bothering him? Because, again, he skated during the Stadium Series practice. Actually, 2 practices he skated before that. Didn't travel with the team. Ended up on LTIR to activate. Who was it? Who were they activating? Activated somebody. They put him on, Cizikas, I think.
Okay.
So Fashion goes in LTR to create that cap space. He goes down a conditioning stint. So I feel like they got to activate him soon. I don't know what the exact rule is, but Fashion's been in practice. He's a full contact, things like that. $775,000 in cap hit. That his contract is in a cap hit. The Islanders don't have that. So they can't actually activate him yet. So that might be the loophole in not activating him because you don't have the cap space.
Yeah, I'm sure Lou's taking his time.
Oh, yeah,
for sure.
Next up from Joey Pickles. Do you feel that all the back-to-backs up to now may trip our progress if the Islanders run out of gas?
All the back-to-backs they've already played?
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
No, I think if you look a couple of years ago...
All the back-to-backs coming up now may trip our progress.
It could.
It could for sure. Then again, if they're feeling
they
really...
have not been good in back-to-backs this season.
True, but the way they're feeling right now, if they keep it going, the last thing you want to play again.
True.
Like for example, the way they beat Boston last night, they probably all woke up and said, "Damn, wish we had the back," because they have a back-to-back coming up. Not next week, the week after. A home, they play Ottawa, and then they play the Rangers, right?
And speaking of back-to-backs, I don't think Varlamov has a win under Patrick Waugh yet. I think he's 0-3-1.
Montreal he lost. St. Louis he lost. Yeah, I don't think he has.
Yeah.
That's
so that
the other
needs
question.
to change too.
Well, that's the question as well.
Right.
The first game he played against Montreal, the Islanders weren't good in front of him, but he clearly showed rust. Against St. Louis, he didn't get tested much. They were just 3 goals in 32 seconds. They're going to kill you.
Right.
You're getting to the point now where it's risky to put Varlamov in. We saw last year, the final 18 games or whatever, he played 3 of them. you got to kind of ride Sorokin at this point. Now, the defense, what I will say is the defense this week obviously has been a lot better, but since Waz come in, the Islanders have allowed the fewest shots against per 60 in the entire NHL.
That's great.
Sorokin went from being the goalie that's faced the most shots in the entire league to 13th on that list.
That's huge.
So having whoever goes in net is not going to be under siege as much as they used to be in theory. If they keep this up, and you look back, and I wrote it in my story about Sorokin being the X factor, but not because he has to be the first star every night. He has to just do his job. And you look back at the years when first year when Trotz came in, I think it was the first year where Grice and Leonard won the Jennings. They weren't elite goaltenders. Leonard wasn't elite. Just they did their jobs, the outside shots. So if Waugh can get them playing better defensively in front of their goalies, where all they have to do is focus on just doing their job, it's not going to matter if Varlamov's in goal or Sorokin. Both of them should be able to do their job and get the Islanders wins.
There you go.
Next up from, sorry if I butcher your name, but I'm going to go with Alfredo.
That sounds like not a hard one to.
I was waiting for something.
Alfrdio.
Okay, I can see that.
So I'm going Alfredo.
Okay, fair enough.
He wants to know, Stefan, what you think? Who do you think we're landing based from your sources?
Your sauces?
My sauces, Pizza Sport
Your
guy.
sauces, Pizza Sport guy.
We know that the Islanders have definitely reached out and are talking with Ottawa, but you look at Ottawa's team, and there's a CVS receipt list of just the amount of players they really could just go after. So I don't know. Again, talking and actually getting something done are two different things. I could see them going and getting a depth forward out there. Again, I'm not saying there's a source at all on the Duclair deal, but I'm saying that it makes a lot of sense, as I'm throwing cards around here. Makes a lot of sense to get a Duclair. So again, source information, I'm just going to say that there's been scouts at the Ottawa games. There's clearly some conversations to be had. I'm not saying that any deals to be made, but clearly there's talks going on there. The Sharks is a bottom feeder, pun intended. Duclair is for the taking. It makes a lot of sense, and we do believe that Waugh is going to have a say in who comes in. So if Waugh is on good terms with the players that he's had before, in juniors, why would Duclair, and he's been preaching speed.
Interesting.
That kind of lines up for making a whole lot of sense.
Okay.
There. So that's what I will say for now.
Okay.
All right. Next up from Grayson, 117. Oh, no, 1,117.
Get the number right, Ed.
The number has to be right. He says, I know this is a dream, but what do you think a package for Pinto and Chychrun would be? I would be totally fine with giving up the first with them being so young.
Well, we're going to have to take Jake the Snake Redonis and ship him to Ottawa. Bye, Jake. See you later. The value, Jake's value has just skyrocketed over the last 3-4 weeks. No, it is. Yeah, I don't think the Islanders could do it. It would be, well, you look at each piece. Chychrun's definitely costing you at least a first. Maybe a first, conditional second, a top prospect because he's under contract. Then you look at Pinto, a young player who they have no reason to trade. Is going to cost you a first. They could ask for whatever they want, really. You're probably looking at 2 to 3 first round picks and a combination of 2 to 3 top. It'd be disgusting, and the Islanders can't afford it.
I think the Islanders would be more than lucky to get one of those guys.
But if you could get Chychrun and Pinto,
sure.
I mean, sure. I just and I don't. By the way, I don't think. I'm pretty sure Ottawa said that they're not going to think about trading Chychrun at the deadline. Probably more at the draft.
Okay.
But yeah, if they do that, Lou Lamoriello should win the GM of the Year again.
Why not? Ed, we'll do one more and then we'll get on out of here.
Oh, well. How about this from CGS878? When will Mayfield learn how to play defense properly?
If he gets back, he's got to get back into the lineup first.
Yeah, I know you're a big proponent with he's not the reason totally why they've been winning all these games.
Well, yeah, because everyone's 3-0 without Mayfield. They lost to Tampa. Everyone's have they played better this week? Is Mayfield the X factor in why they're 3-0? No, the line changes are the forwards, scoring goals, the depth scoring. Again, not being on the PK as much as they've been plays a huge part in this. And Mayfield has had issues because whether it's injuries or just mental mistakes of being in the box a lot. That game against the Rangers, that can't happen. No. But I don't think Mayfield's the reason. That being said, if he's ready to go, Waugh's got a very interesting choice to make if that's the case.
Yeah, for sure. Ed, we can sneak one more in if you have it.
Want to sneak one more in?
Yeah.
Well, let's throw phlebotomy 1 back up there. Is it a disaster if they don't get at least 4 points in the next 3 games? The ground they made up basically the ground they made up in this past week basically meaning not losing points against SJS and ANA.
San Jose and Anaheim.
Yeah.
So
I'm Ron Burgundy. Teleprompter, I'm reading it.
if they don't get 2 points against San Jose and Anaheim, not saying the season's done because you never know, but those are two pretty bad teams. And by the way, Anaheim at some point, it's probably before they face Anaheim, Vetrano's gone, Henrique's gone. They're trading everyone that even has the talent. You're going to be playing probably a minor league type of team. No Zegras still, things like that. So you got to look at it that way as they're already bad now. By the time the Islanders play them, which will be after the deadline, they're going to be missing 2 of their better players immediately. So, yeah, you got to beat them. You got to beat San Jose. That's a minimum. You're getting 4 of the next 6. And St. Louis will be the tough one because and again, it's also not an immediate win against San Jose. You got to actually play hockey the way you need to play.
As we know.
But if they don't beat St. Louis, you got to find a way to beat both Anaheim and San Jose. And even if they beat St. Louis and keep the win streak going, it is monumental to beat those bad teams. If you're not going to beat the teams that are elite teams in front of you, there's no question if you want to make the playoffs, you got to beat the ones behind you.
Agreed. I don't need to add anything there. They just got to win a lot of hockey games from here until the end. There you go.
I don't think anyone wanted you to add to that anyway. So
Ed, I think you should just cue the end music and let's get the hell out of here, right, pal? Mute your own mic there, buddy. All right, folks. Want to thank you all for tuning in to twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY and YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, all over the place. Thank you so much for hanging with us. Thank you so much for getting involved in the chat. If we didn't get to your questions, hopefully we'll get to them next time. So with that out of the way, I want to also send a big thanks to Justin Bourne of Sportsnet. Great spot from him. And of course, a huge thanks to our wonderful sponsors, starting with Blue Line Deli and Bagels. Check them out at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington and 217 Carlton Avenue in East Islip. Check out the menu and order online at BlueLineDeli.com. Also happy to be sponsored by Main Street Board Game Cafe, located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Find out how to unplug your game at mainstboardgamecafe.com. And also a big thanks to Razor and Kniff attorneys at law. Nobody likes going to court, but hey, if you have to, call 516-742-7600 for a free consultation. And also a big thanks to A1 VIP Entertainment, your one-stop entertainment concierge for sports, concerts, Broadway, and more. One call does it all at 516-787-0048. And of course, folks, if you haven't done already, rate, review, subscribe, tell us how much you love or hate Hockey Night in New York. Stefen Rosner, where can you be found on the socials?
Yeah, if you love me or hate me, you can follow me on Twitter at Stefen_Rosner, STEFEN_Rosner. The Hockey News, Islanders and Rangers, NHL.com.
There you go. You can follow myself on Twitter at Shawnee Hockey. You can follow the show across all social media platforms at Hockey Night NY. And also want to remind you guys, we are hosting a viewing party at RJ Daniels on St. Patrick's Day. The Islanders versus the Rangers. Stefen will be at the Garden covering the game. But Mr. Michael Carver, formerly of ILC Podcast, will be joining me as my special guest co-host. And we'll also be hanging out with the guys from Rangers Ed Podcast to give us the Rangers side of the coin here. Going to be a lot of fun. Going to have raffles, prizes, food specials, drink specials, the whole nine. Going to be a lot of fun. Showtime will be at 12 before puck drop at 1. That will be a great day. Come hang out with us then. And I think that'll do it. So, for Stefen, for Ed, for Jay, for Jake the Snake in the Snake Den, I've been Sean Cuthbert. We've been Hockey Night in New York, and we will see you next week.